get joy thinking about what he's done for me. I get joy thinking about what he's done for me. It's in my hands, my feet, I'm talking about what he's done for me. I get joy just thinking about what he's done for me. I get joy thinking about.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome again to our weekly Wednesday Bible study. We're so glad that you decided to join us as we study the life of the patriarchs. Right now, we're looking at the life of Jacob. Jacob came to Laban's house with nothing but the clothes on his back and a staff. He found Rachel and chose her to be his wife. After agreeing to work 7 years for her hand, he was deceived and given Leah instead because she was the oldest, and according to her father, the custom was they could not give the younger to marry before the older. So, after working an additional 7 years for Rachel, he now has 2 wives, each one with their own handmaiden. Now, between the 4 women, the 2 wives and the 2 handmaidens, Jacob fathers 11 sons and 1 daughter. Additionally, in 6 more years of working for Laban, he built a great herd of speckled and ring-straight sheep and goats. Picking up at Genesis chapter 31, beginning at verse 1. And he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob had taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath he gotten all his glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, Return unto the land of thy fathers and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before. But the God of my father hath been with me, and ye know that with all my power I have served your father. And your father hath deceived me, and changed my wages 10 times. But God suffered him not to hurt me. If he said thus, then speckle shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckle. And if he said thus, the ring straight shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ring straight. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. It came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring straight, speckled and grizzled. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes. See, all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring straight, speckled and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him as strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God had taken from our father, that is ours, and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God has said unto thee, do. All right, once more. God provides for his servant at the expense of someone else. If you remember in our previous study, Abraham went into Egypt poor, and he came out rich. Genesis chapter 13, verses 1 and 2. And Abram went out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him unto the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. They left Canaan to escape a famine, and they got rich in Egypt. Jacob went to Laban poor and came out rich because God was with him. God promised Jacob he would be with him. And we see that he certainly was. Picking back up at Genesis 31, verse 17. Then Jacob arose and set his sons and his wives upon camels. And he carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten in Padanaram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban and the Syrian, in that he told him not that he fled. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river and set his face toward the Mount Gilead. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob was fled. And he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey. And they overtook him in the Mount Gilead. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said unto him, Take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. So Jacob's successful breeding brings jealousy on the part of Laban, because now he has the large herd and Laban doesn't. So he sees that Laban's countenance has changed towards him. So he says, you know what? Maybe we ought to just leave. He gathers his family and flocks and leaves at the command of God. Go back to the land where your father is. But he leaves secretly. Now, Laban was told that he fled, not that he left, and he pursues him. After 7 days, Laban catches him. Verse number 25. Then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mount of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives taken with the sword? Wherefore didst thou flee away secretly, and steal away from me, and didst not tell me, that I might have sent thee away with mirth, and with songs, with tabret, and with harp? And hast not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Thou hast now done foolishly in so doing. It is in the power of my hand to do you hurt. But the God of your father spake unto me yesternight, saying, Take thou heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And now, though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my goods? Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid, for I said, Peradventure thou wouldest take by force thy daughters from me. With whomsoever thou findest thy goods, let him not live. Before our brethren discern thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the two maidservants' tents, but he found them not. Then went he out of Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture and sat upon them. And Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. She said to her father, Let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of women is upon me. And he searched, but found not the images. All right, unknown to Jacob, Rachel steals Laban's gods. That's what these images are, his religious artifacts. This shows that she does not wholly, completely trust in Jehovah. She didn't tell Jacob what she was doing, and she did it on her own secretly. And then she lied to her father, said, I can't get up because I'm in my time of women, and if you just bear with me, let me sit here. And he didn't bother her. All right. So now Laban has searched all the tents. He can't find his images. Verse 36. And Jacob was wroth and chode with Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, What is my trespass? What is my sin that thou hast so hotly pursued after me? Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, what hast thou found of all thy household stuff? In other words, Jacob is saying, I told you that I didn't have your stuff. Now you're looking through everything, you still don't find it. Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge betwixt us both. This 20 years have I been with thee. Thy ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have I not eaten. That which was torn of beasts, I brought it not unto thee. I bear the loss of it. Of my hand didst thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day, the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from my eyes. Listen now, Jacob said, I worked hard for you, Laban. Verse 41, thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac have been with me, surely thou hast sent me away now empty. God has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. All right, so Jacob is bold now, and he rebukes Laban for the harsh treatment that he received. We saw that Laban was dishonest, and we saw that God saw what Laban did to Jacob. Let us never forget, we've got an all-seeing eye watching us, and God knows when people mistreat us. He knows when we're being abused and treated harshly, and he does not take that lightly because we are his children. So he saw what Laban was doing to Jacob, and he prospered him with wives and sons and daughters and men servants and maid servants and cattle and great wealth. But Jacob did not take credit for this. He acknowledged God's deliverance. Church, when we see that God has touched our lives, whether bountifully or what we may consider to be minimally, we must give God the credit for our deliverance. Verse 43, and Laban answered and said unto Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have borne? Now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they did eat thereupon the heap. And Laban called it Jagar-Shudatha, but Jacob called it Galeed. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Galeed and Mizpah, for he said, the Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent one from another. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness betwixt me and thee. And Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap, and behold this pillar which I have cast betwixt me and thee. This heap be witness, and this pillar be witness, that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and thou shalt not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge betwixt us. And Jacob sware by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount and called his brethren to eat bread. And they did eat bread and tarried all night in the mount. And early in the morning, Laban rose up and kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned unto his place. All right. So now we start to see the growth of Abraham's family from one child to two children, one child being Isaac, and then two children being Jacob and Esau, and now the 12 children that belong to Jacob. And this doesn't even consider Ishmael or the 6 children that he fathered with his second wife, Keturah. God keeps his promises. And we need to remember as we read these stories that there's lessons in them for us as well. We need to see how God protected his servants, how God said, I'll be with you, and how he prospered Jacob in his father-in-law's presence. We thank you so much for studying with us. We thank you for tuning in. Please like us on Facebook. Please subscribe to our channel. Please share these lessons with all of your friends and acquaintances. Please continue to join us as we scroll through the life and episodes of the patriarchs in Israel. I'm sure there's lessons that they learned that we need to learn as well. Until then, as always, we pray you'll be careful and be prayerful. God bless you.
It's in my hands, my feet, I'm talking about what he's done for me. I get joy just thinking about what he's done